Welcome back to New Realities. I'm here with another amazing show with an amazing guest with Suzanne Ross. Of course, she is the producer and coordinator and organizer of this fantastic conference gathering, Sedona Ascension Retreats, 10th anniversary, March 14th to the 16th. Suzanne, tell people about the amazing people who will be there.
You know what, Alan? I'm calling this an alchemical blend of luminaries because that's really what it is. All of these luminaries who are world renowned speakers and best selling authors, they magically blend to create this alchemy for ascension. And so I'm just very excited that these luminaries said yes to coming and being part of this event. It's all about the guests. And so we're creating this very powerful event to make a positive difference in the lives of our guests by offering diverse opportunities to see on-stage presentations, indoor workshops, go on outdoor journeys. And today I couldn't be more excited than to have my very dear friend and Sedonian, Amanda Romania. And Amanda actually was at my very first conference in 2015. And so she is truly a part of this 10th anniversary celebration.
Yes, welcome Amanda to
Welcome. Thank you.
our show. And I always love talking to you at conferences because you're so full of so much esoteric knowledge and mystical awareness. And I'm so happy you're going to be at the conference presenting there. What would you say your real specialties are in the kind of metaphysic esoteric worlds?
Thank you, Anne, so much. And Suzanne, my sister, I wouldn't be anywhere else than cheering you on and supporting this amazing work that I've followed you and I'm so inspired. So thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Amanda Romania. I'm here in Sedona. I'm kind of known as for my speciality with Akashic records and the teachings that I bring through on the different levels of the different libraries from your past life records, your present life, life between life, the life between lives, and the cosmic lives. So I kind of cover all of the libraries. And at the moment, it's really those cosmic connections and our life between life libraries that are catching my awareness and my attention.
Well, how does that fit into the sort of moment in history we are at now with the ascension vibrations and maybe clearing a lot of old stuff that's still hanging around the earth plane? Can you make sense of it all?
So I want to just backtrack just a little bit. Um, Most of us we kind of remember what we were doing around 2019, and everybody's ready to go, and we're doing our work, we're studying, we're discovering new metaphysical teachers, and people are bringing through all these amazing new things. And then we all kind of went to sleep for a little bit, and we all held our space while we shifted into a new dimension of working. And for me in 2019, I went down underneath the Sphinx in Egypt. I've been taking groups to Egypt for 20 years, and that gave me a whole new grid line that I've been waiting to shift onto my ascension vehicle, I guess, over the last 3, 4 years. And it's November 7th, and we fully shifted in within the last 72 hours. So if you're feeling it out there, all the things we've been doing of our unfinished business, we're now helping others finish theirs. And that's
Wait,
the program.
you went under the actual Sphinx when you were in Egypt? You went into the inner chamber at the back there? They let you.
I'm teeny tiny. I can crawl down. And there was a ladder, and I'm known for going on ladders that I shouldn't be on.
Uh,
They've removed the ladder now. I was only there about 6, 7 weeks ago.
wow.
But yes. And I kind of stood and I'm thinking, what is this? And then this whole grid line, like the Matrix movie, it kind of ran through me.
But what's there? What's actually there in the physical space?
So in the physical space, it's like rocks and rubble, and it's kind of like you can see through to the back.
Hmm.
Um, And I've spent time, I'm very fortunate, I get to spend time with the archaeological teams and the minister people. So I will say to them, are there tunnels? And they say, no, there's no tunnels, but there are shafts. So they
Mm,
kind of do a loop back. You have to just catch the moment. But yes,
mm,
that gave me a whole new perspective of grid lines and energetics and portals into other worlds and dimensions on this earth plane. And of course,
mm.
everything that happens on this plane is happening on the cosmic plane up there.
Right. And so since this is a live show, you're saying 72 hours from today,
Yeah.
November 7th, what shifted? Because obviously with all the political stuff, something did shift, but what else shifted along with that to maybe balance things out or something?
So what I began to notice over the last kind of 72 hours, we're kind of in waiting. My background, I'm originally from England, but I've been here in the US for 10 years. So I have a kind of a stake and a home and a love for this nation and this country. But at the same time, I kind of hold myself in observation of what are the words that people are using, the frequencies, what are the lessons that they're going through. And I started to notice kind of some tremors in the waves, dream states, realities that were coming to people that kind of then went, okay, when this result comes in, how are you going to deal and handle it? And the biggest thing that I noticed was we had this 2000 years ago. We had this 4000 years ago. So you go back into kind of that ancient Rome when Cleopatra's leaving the planet and we're ending that age of Aries and we're going into the age of Pisces. It was the same thing as we're kind of feeling now. It's a little bit unstable. You have to pick a team. People are trying to work out how to work with each other. Um, and I have to say, I've been like an emergency room for the last 48 hours of people coming and saying, oh my gosh, this person said this and my family said that. And how do I get, what was really nice was how do I evolve and move up from this and how do I hold this space? Rather than the victim and the pushback and the criticism, I've watched people make amazing, amazing shifts into their light worker self. So that's what I've been saying this 72 hours. It's kind of like that choice point. You're either in this dimension or you're working to it. And so many people I've been inspired to see shift.
Wait, so what can we do? What is each of us supposed to do to be more in alignment?
If I was sitting down with someone for the first time, I would say, okay, let's go into your Akashic record. Let's look at why you came to this planet. What was the difference you came to make? Let's look at your own personal records and what is it you're feeling and what is it you're dealing with? And getting all those base emotions and then saying, how evolved from that are you? How can you shift that through? What are you feeling? And what it does is it engages that emotional body to then
Mm,
go through. And one of the signatures with the Akashic record of shifting in your frequency of your record is the energy of courage. If you
mm,
put the Hawkins scale to get you through in that middle band, to get you higher, courage is a word I'll often say. What would you have the courage to do? Would you have the courage to hug that person? Would you have the courage to hug yourself? And getting people through that loop where
mm.
it's, and I love that you said that the conference, Suzanne, is about alchemy and where we've been feeling this kind of Chiron wounded healer for years. You shift to the shaman, and then someone said, well, you shifted into alchemy. And so, therefore, yesterday I looked and I said, that's the reason why I'm at that conference. That's the reason why I'm at that work, because that's the timeline I'm now on. So, I think that putting your own alchemy on it is going to be a big healing for yourself and your communities.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Amanda, and mentioning that alchemy because that's really what I felt. It's alchemizing and coming together as one in unity. And now is the time to really emphasize the need for unity and to transcend any type of division. And that's not just on our planet, right? This expands out into the cosmos.
Yeah.
And transcending any division between any star race, and really recognizing the oneness of all it is. And I know that you had made a special request to be a more integral part of this particular event in 2025. And so I really felt like you were coming out in 2025, showing up on stage in this powerful way, offering workshop, offering the outdoor journey. And so what is it about 2025 that you feel you can contribute to the alchemy?
I think having 10 years of Sedona under my belt, 20 years in Egypt, 6 years Glastonbury, 6 year Maya Land, and I'm on the front line where I'm taking the calls. I mainly support the teachers. So a lot of the teachers, the readers, the healers, they all come through. And I started to notice that they're all up leveling. They're bringing in new things because now I teach on a global level. So I'm in Singapore yesterday. I'm in Taiwan tomorrow. I'm here with you guys today. And goodness, I'm in Costa Rica next week. So the universe suddenly said, you're in your holding bay. It's time to move you into position. And you either put your hand up and say yes, or move to the back of the queue. And I said yes. So I'm doing the events. I'm touring Asia in February, Singapore, Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand. I'm teaching in all those places before I come to you in March. And it's that kind of thing of saying, I'm here and I'm ready. I don't want to miss my timeline.
Wow, that is great, Amanda. You know, you're so knowledgeable. I'm always curious about people's history a little bit because did you start out as a regular sort of person or were you born with this knowledge?
Oh, thank you, Alan. I like to give my story because sometimes I know there's many people listening going, yeah, that happened to me. You know, growing up in a northern English town, only child, Aries with Aquarius rising. I started off in shoe shops. I worked for an organization called Clark Shoes. And I went the full scale academic. I owned my own chain of shoe shops eventually, and still it wasn't enough. And I would sneak on weekends. My teams would be fine. I would go down to Glastonbury and I would sit and I would listen to the teachers. And I went through every workshop there was. I was like this kind of junkie where I had to go to these workshops. I'll sign for this and I'll sign for that. And what I noticed about the Akashic records is that they don't take you through this line like this. They'll kind of give you this, but then there's a shift at the end of it. So you don't quite know where you're heading. And I started to host and facilitate for my teacher in Egypt. And so getting 45 people through Egypt 3 times a year. You've done those big journeys, Alan, with a lot of people, a lot of bodies, a lot of
Yes.
voices, a lot of souls. It's kind of boot camp. And what I started to do was gather my own encyclopedia and study each area. And I always went to the best of the teachers. So I would kind of follow, gather what I needed, and then moved along. So when I'm reading Akashic records, I can read from your past lives, your Lemurian timeline, up into your Orion ambassadorships and angels and all those things in between. And because I'm a librarian in the Akashic, you have to have knowledge of the books and you have knowledge of the information. So this year I went to study in Greece. I went to study in Italy. I went to study again through Egypt. And each time they reveal a new level. And then I simply compartment it into my brain. And I do have a photographic memory so that when I'm working with someone, they're just sending me information and I just kind of relay the information back. And then with my Aries qualities, my whole thing is, so what are you going to do with that? How is it going to help your soul and help the souls of others? So that's why I like to be practical, hands-on. With my teaching, I deliver always one-to-one.
But how did you gain I mean, but you had something you were born with as far as an awakened consciousness, right?
So I think with my soul, when we've kind of tracked my soul journey, I've been in these timelines of golden ages and time changes. And I've always had this, I could say I was very fortunate or lucky, but I've had this way with the luminaries or the VIPs or the elders that they've felt very comfortable with me. So I've been very lucky that I'll often get a backstage pass and I'll have that quality moment with that person that is making massive changes and is so these incredible people. And I'm kind of like that librarian or that little oracle that they've relied on or they've worked with that doesn't take away from them, compliments and helps them. So I call it my spiritual emotional intelligence. But there's something about it where they will often say, I feel comfortable. She's not kind of overpowering the situation. And this is how I got to work on, many of the people visiting here in Sedona. One of my highlights was actually reading and working with Wayne Dyer. And the light in the room was phenomenal. And being able
With
to
who? Who did you say? Who did you
Wayne
work?
Dyer.
Oh, Wayne Dyer. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when I went to kind of Big Bear and the indigenous grandmothers are, oh, she can stay with us, bring the little one in. And so those are kind of things where you never show up with intention. And I think that those that are really in their journey and doing the work, they know that. And that's where I've been welcomed.
I
So I
think
kind
that
of
you
just,
were kind of a pioneer here, though, right, in Sedona with your Atlantis Metaphysical Center. Amanda, yeah, I remember that well. And it's actually, interestingly enough, the very first time I met Alan Steinfeld was he came into your Atlantis Metaphysical Center. This is probably 2015, 10 years ago. But in any case, there you had in your shop displayed all of that artwork of the galactics. I don't remember the artist's name, Brian
was
something.
Brian DeFlores. He
Yeah.
kind of created the shop. And then he went back to Vegas, and I'd been teaching and been a partner with him. And I took it over because I wanted people to have a safe haven where it was okay to talk about galactics. And, Suzanne, you gave that platform for us. I remember the first time we did one of the talks, and it wasn't, are you Palladian? Are you Syrian? I think I brought about 12 different races to the table. And I had to say this in a class in Singapore the other day. There's nearly 8 billion of us here on the planet, and there's 200 billion stars. So chances are we all came from our own star. There's clusters of us, but we're all our individual selves doing our work for our particular star teams that are watching.
Well,
So
on that
this
note,
was great for that. Yeah.
oh, thank you, dear. I was wondering about that. Now, you've been to all these different countries around the world, and you're connected into all these different star races. Do you find that certain cultures around the world are more directly connected with certain star races?
Yes, absolutely. And I can often pinpoint where people live and their orientation. So, an example for that would be if I was taking the United States, there's a lot of Palladian frequencies through kind of the Southwest. There's a lot of Arcturian frequencies through kind of Arizona. If you go into Silicon Valley in San Francisco, you've got your Orion clusters because their cultures, like star cultures, they work in their own different ways. They have their own language, they have their different likes, dislikes, and they have their own purposes. So when I was teaching in Beijing through COVID, the whole of the world, we all shut down. And the Beijing agency opened and said, will you come and teach our students about cosmic connections? And so therefore working with them, they have a very strong Orion culture that comes through that area. And so that's how I started to learn about planets were and who did what. And this is why, it's like, okay, well, you have some Lyra frequencies and you're carrying some things from Vega and you're aligned with this and you work with that. And often I'll say to people, look, where do you look up at the sky? Like, do you look up at Orion's belt? And they'll go, every time. And it's that nice, subtle way of helping them find their home without telling them.
Right. Bashar says at some point we on Earth will know our true cosmic history. Do you think that is coming too?
I do. What we've got to remember is we've never spoken these languages for 3,000 to 4,000 years. And if we did speak them, it was often the elders or the highborn or the high priests or priestesses that knew them. And so therefore, it's like relearning a new language, going to a new country. But the one thing I'm always asked, so I teach in the Middle East, I'm teaching in Europe, I'm teaching in Asia. And everyone will say to me, do you know the languages? And I'll say, I barely know 3 words. I know 3 words in Arabic. I know how to say yes, no, and Habibi, my darling. That's it. But what I found is if you're coming from a heart frequency, they recognize, heart to heart, it recognizes. So therefore, we're all a collective, as if we're on a spaceship, learning how to do for the micro from the macro. Now, that doesn't always mean that everybody gets on. There's some aspects of Orion that are quite dark. We have our Draco friends that were here before when we had our reptilians and dinosaurs. We have our Lyran elders that try to help us with our way and give us good advice that we're like little children we don't often listen to. But if we can look at this place as a universe and a university, and I believe Sedona is the capital of that university. We're like a Harvard of the day. Once we start thinking like that, it's like, oh, now I can see the territory of where we're at. And I just need to get on the graduate program and get my way through. Because once you get through, you get to go back home.
But that is going back home. You're offering a Stargate opening during your outdoor journey, right? Can you tell us about that and how that's so easy to do in Sedona?
So I think we had that conversation, Suzanne. I think we had it over lunch one time. And when I had the Atlantis store, anybody that's visiting Sedona, we've shifted out of there now, but the Pegasus that was in front is still there. And they look directly onto Thunder Mountain. And I always remember Thunder Mountain, the clouds would come down and the town would go really quiet. And I started to realize that there were doorways and portals. And often people have seen energy moving around. So you go Thunder Mountain, you come through Boynton Canyon, you take a line to Montezuma as well, which I know is where you are, Suzanne. Then you can take that grid line to Lake Tahoe, Mount Shasta, before you hit through into the Pacific. And so I started to notice that there were gateways and chambers on the Earth level and on the inner Earth level. So in Lake Tahoe, you can drop down into that and you can see what's going on in the inner Earth. And then you can go into Shasta, drop down into the inner Earth, the telos frequencies. And so by taking that journey, Sedona is a hub for that. And so for me, I then link that over through to the East Coast, going through the Azores, up through Glastonbury, across Morocco, through the Atlas Mountains and into Egypt. So I call it my magic carpet, but that's how I get around. I take people around because sometimes they need to go to those stargates or those portals and go through.
So what's happening on the Earth? We are shifting dimensional realities, and these Earth bodies are shifting along with it, and we have to align within the Akashic records that we have been chosen. So where does it look like? I think maybe I asked that, where in the future, like what's coming up for us as a planetary civilization?
So what I've started to notice in the Akashic record is most people are kind of at that point where all their earth records and business is done.
Mm,
Then what's happening for a lot of people that have been on that light worker journey is their next incarnation record that's sitting in the future self of us is inlaying over back into this current lifetime. So some of us are feeling like we're caught between the worlds. It's like, okay, this is who I am, but this is who I need to be. And that's a big change that's happening in this kind of now, this reality. And I think it's showing up on the astrological levels as well. So what that means is we're leaving that old behind. We're bringing in that next frequency. And one of the things that's come in is it's in the life between life area. And in the life between life area, many of us have been on the front line welcoming those souls up. And they're coming up with their regret, their sadness. It's nothing to do about who they were or what they did. They're coming up, even the most wealthy person on the planet to the person with nothing. What are they coming up their unfinished business with? What emotions and baggage are they hanging on to? And
mm,
so now, rather than going upstairs and doing it, we're able to do that downstairs on earth. And this is where that process time, where we're shifting out of kind of being like a telephone that is plugged into the wall to being like an iPhone 60. Because you're receiving these messages, you just don't know how your brain scrambles them. Like all of a sudden, you were talking about alchemy, Suzanne. You've got that message coming to you. You've got that mission, that download. It's in with what you're doing. And it's exactly what we need to hear because that's why we're coming to the conference to speak with you and speak to the people that are drawn to you. And we think that's just coming out of thin air. What we've got to do now is go, no, I'm picking up the matrix, I'm picking up the frequency. And we also, I will say this with an air of caution, we need to be careful of the matrices and the programs that are locking in. A lot of our younger children, they're having these issues with they want to be out of body, they don't want to be on this planet, and they're really struggling. And they're getting overloaded because their brains are wired a little different, like our rainbows and crystal children. That's why they have the allergies and they have the sensitivities because their wiring systems are slightly different. And we have to prepare for that. So this is all about that preparation. And 2000 years ago, we were all wandering around and waiting for this man called Jesus to come. And many of us were listening to him. And he was just like this really, cool guy that was coming to talk to us. And I was in Israel working last year. I had a group of Chinese there. So they kind of see things in a different perspective. They just go into they don't have religious filter. They just go to all of the different religious places with such love. And so I was able to see all of that in its action, in its place. And I just thought, wow, this must be what it was like 2000 years ago when he was here. But we kind of didn't get the memo, and we're back here now in the age of Aquarius doing it again. So that's our evolutionary mode. And Aquarius is all about the brothers and sisters. It's about the healers and the teachers.
mm. Well, are we doing it again, or is it like a spiral as opposed to a circle? We learn the lessons and
Yeah.
the Aquarian energy is unique. It hasn't been here for 12,000 years, and it's also in a different octave of the Aquarian frequency. So we're headed into unprecedented times and we're clearing all the roadblocks, I suppose. So I think the emotional body is being tested. If stuff is coming up for people, it means like this is a chance to look at it and clear it because this is an opportunity to go beyond those old patterns. That's what I get about that.
That's exactly right, Alan. We're spiraling, which is ascension. We're moving. And we're playing this kind of game. It's a little bit like snakes and ladders. You kind of go up your ladder and then the snake happens and it's like, oh. And we're just kind of trying to bridge. And that's because, we love these human bodies. We love this beautiful planet. This is a time to cherish to be here. But, often we're going through those struggles and those kind of things. And then it comes to a point of, well, what is my reality? Why am I really here? And there's a lot of races that missed their ascension windows, and that's why they're here. But they all want to go home. And we're saying, do your work. We're in this unity together. Use your alchemy, and we can help get that contact and help get you home. One of the most famous portals I work with is that King's Chamber where the sarcophagus is. Yeah, that's its own little spaceship. And when you shift your reality, you can go various different places.
But what is home? What does that mean to go home? Where are we going? Because home is sort of where we are in a sense, right? So what
How
do
I
you mean?
describe how I describe home is the universe cosmic is chemistry, biology, and physics. And we're walking in that in these earth bodies. But when our earth bodies have finished the work that they need to do, our energy sources go back magnetically to where they belong or where they go to. Or they're cycling through the universe, working in various different planetary systems, working in various different cosmic connections. What we're looking for is to kind of go back into that central source. It's a little bit like that Big Bang, and we all go, oosh. But then my belief is that we will all come back into that kind of central and hold space together in some kind of level of fusion. We try to look at it through our earth minds and try to make sense so that the left brain doesn't kind of flip out. But if you can think of it in a molecular one, it's a little bit easier.
Why would the left brain flip out? Like what would flip it out? I mean, tell us.
Sometimes when you're trying to process that your energy, because you're in your day, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? What is it I need to do? What's on my to-do list? And what happens then is all of that right brain psychic senses, she'll go, or the Akashic field, she'll go, okay, I'm ready until you want to listen. And then the left brain quietens and all that information from the universe can come in. And sometimes people will call it meditation, or they'll go, astral traveling, remote viewing. And it comes in through that occipital ridge at the back of your head. And it filters around, and then your brain makes sense of it. So part of my mastery is helping people make sense of it so they don't think they're going crazy.
Right.
The amount of amazing spiritual people I meet, they'll say to me, Amanda, I was nearly heading for the psych ward when I was 18 because I was coming out with all this information and people didn't know what to do with me. Now I can understand because there's people that can not only understand me, but they can actually translate for me. So that's where, if you're working in the Akashic field and you can translate for the different cosmic races, that's of great benefit at the moment. And it's not about doing light language or things like that. It's just like, I hear your struggles and I see the difficulty you have by being on this earth. Now, how do we get you the help you need? So
Cute.
I've always appreciated your practical application, Amanda, of the star race wisdom and even the prophetic visions. It's the practical application in people's everyday lives.
it is, because otherwise we go off into a zone where we're not functioning, we're not taking care of ourselves, and then 20 years goes by and we're not able to fit in with the reality that we're in. And that's where a lot of people are constantly trying to get out of body. And I'm saying, get in your body. There was many years ago, I went to a Mexican shaman and he looked at me and he's like, she's upside down. She's the wrong way in her body because I'd been doing sacred journeys. I'd been doing meditations. I'd been doing psychic applications. I trained in remote viewing. I was totally out of my body. So for me, I didn't know how to be. And then I had to learn how to be. And then they
Well,
sent me to Sedona.
Well, that is a good point. Embodiment is really the key to ascension. You're not going anywhere until you're fully embodied in the human. So, what was your methods of embodying your physicality?
So one of the things I use as a frequency is I use a lot of words. So my words are imagination and curiosity. Oh, I'm curious about this. So I would go and learn or work or be, and then it would be a case of, okay, now how do I apply that? How do I work with that? And then having a normal existence. I go back to my parents. I go back to normal things. I have animals in my home. Um, my brain works in a totally different way. So I do see the world through a different lens. But at the same time, I go through all the normal bodily functions. I go to sleep at night. I have my home. I drive a car. So having that regular earth life, but then thinking, wow, this is what I get to do, and this is how I get to think, can really help me in that. Many times in my life, I've gone from kind of CEO level, took a job break, and then took a job and say part-time in a department store. And people would say, how do you do that? Go from this level up here to what they think is this level here. And it's like, there's no different level. I'm the same person. I'm just functioning in a different environment. This one's a lot less stressful, but I'm learning and I'm growing. So that's how I see that, observing myself rather than getting too far into it of what I think it should be.
Right. Thank you for that. Suzanne, what do you think?
I was telling my husband the other day that I started out, way back in 2000, even 1995 is really when I had my first awakening. And I became lightly spiritual until about 2008. And then I just dove in both feet, right, into heavy, like metaphysical, deeply spiritual, moved to Sedona in 2015, really went all into everything from star races to the Akashic records, right, to vortex meditation and guiding tours in the vortex, to now coming back kind of in a balanced place of taking everything that I've accumulated over all the years of being dedicated to the spiritual path, but really grounding it and feeling centered in my right and left brain, applying my spirituality to my everyday life in a way that enhances my life and the life of others, but it feels like a very balanced way of living and being in a transcendent state. In fact, my presentation at the September retreat was called Transcendence as a Way of Living and Being. And my presentation at the March retreat was the Ascension portal is in the middle of the left and right brain. Like it's really balancing the right and left brain that's the key to ascension. So I don't know, just coming full circle to this place of this spiritual way of being becomes a way of living.
Mm.
That's great. Yes. That's a good point. Way of being becomes a way of living. This
Mm.
is the dimensional realities I think we're aspiring to. Because we have all these high ideals of ascension, what that's like, universal mind, multidimensional consciousness. So they're percolating in this awareness, but coming, they're landing, and I think having a community event where we can all come together, compare knowledge and wisdom and be in the field together. It just empowers everyone, whether you're on stage or in the audience, you are part of this evolving community. What do you feel, Amanda, about that aspect?
I always think, I've been part of the audiences. Now I'm part of on the stage. But I always would say to people, we're all bearing witness to this. And it's in that bearing witness that I came, I heard, I listened, I understood, and then I love this, this living and being. kind of thought. And in that way, this is kind of shifting in that consciousness, because we're not projecting that on anybody, but it is a shift of energy. It's a shift of frequency. And the more we come as that collective, that's where kind of we give opportunity for others to explore that as well. And you know, Suzanne, 20 years ago, you had to fly across the world and do a week's workshop to just simply, get that knowledge. And now it's in the Aquarian age, up in the air, so you just click a button. And people like yourself and you, Alan, you guys have broken open those doors and those glass ceilings, so that many, many can come through. And I guess, that's why the purpose when we came, when we did.
Yes, it's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting times that, I mean, I think it's a little difficult too, but there's a definite movement and frequency and intensity, and that's why I really think we need that alone time, but we need that gathering time. We need to come together and compare notes and match frequencies and get reminders. That's why I love going to Suzanne's conferences. Oh yeah, that's a good one. And it's like, and what you're offering, Amanda, it's building, like if I was a marketing person, I would say it's building a brand, but it's building a consciousness. It's building a culture of awakening, let's say.
It's a hub. And the beauty of it is, Suzanne, you kept that momentum going. You've never stepped away. You've just kept moving it. And for those of us, when I see people coming through, when we're here in Sedona, we forget, but there's a whole host of people out there going, is that real? Did she just say that? I've been thinking that. And that is just such a joy to see that they're not alone, because there's a lot of people out there that feel alone at certain times, but spirituality brings them to that together.
Yes, yes. Suzanne, what do you think? I mean, talk about
the community. Really, just as you're saying that, I just feel like my heart's expanding, and I just feel that sense of spiritual community coming together in love. It really does feel that way at these events. I mean, you both have been multiple times. It's like we all activate each other. We're all in love with one another. We all support each other. And it just creates this really high vibe love frequency. And the most common response I get from people who attend is, wow, this is such a high vibe event. Everybody from the vendors to the guests, to the speakers, to the teachers, to the performers, like it's all so high vibrational. And so everybody's like floating on cloud nine. It's just so comforting and reassuring to be with your fellow soul brothers and sisters. It's such a positive affirmation.
Yes, thank you, Suzanne. Yes, so at the conference, Amanda, give us a little peek of what you're going to be dealing with in your talk.
Okay, so I'm doing 2 events. I'm doing a workshop, and that is going to be about moving into the 8th dimension. We've talked a lot in Sedona about the cities of light, and people are waiting for this structure to emerge. So what I help people to do is shift into the Akashic field so that they can view that. And we're going to be working with the Temple of the Oracle. And the Temple of the Oracle is it's kind of like a recreated room in the Akashic field where they can see future timelines and options for themselves and possibly for their practices, their work, their communities. We're also going to be doing the Temple of Mirrors, and the Temple of Mirrors lets you examine your light body as you are now and in other fields of the Akashic records, past, present, future, so that you really start to see yourself and also to tap into that unfinished business. So this is kind of delving into the areas where I work on the other side. I got so tired of working up there in 1968, I decided to come down to Earth and do that work down here. So that's the information I'll be sharing. And I'll be sharing about how my dimension shifted through Egypt in the timelines. What we're also going to be doing is a journey out on the land. I think that's the Monday. And that's going to be talking about how Lumerian inner Earth portals work, how Stargates open so that you can go through these various dimensions, and also how the grid lines lie around the Earth, kind of taking people on that journey all the way through. I think we'll go in through some of the places I work because I have access and giving them a perspective of these stargates and portals and maybe different frequencies and different cultures, going through some of the chakra points. Often we have to just kind of see who shows up or what happens, and it often will depend on the group. My group's the kind of people know I have to be there and be part of that. And many of the guardians of these stargates and portals are dragons. So we'll be working with the dragon communities as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's been a bit of a dragon resurgence. I know we're in the year of the dragon, but what does the dragon really mean? What is dragon energy? How do we work with that?
So dragon energy comes on 3 different levels. We have our earth level, which is our kind of like our what was left over from our dinosaur timelines, like our crocodiles and our certain like amphibians and our reptilians, our snakes, those kind of levels. And we all still carry a little bit of that reptilian DNA. It kind of sits in that back lower tailbone. So a lot of people, that's why they're always clearing that root chakra and those first bases. Then we have the dimensional dragons. And the dimensional dragons are the ones that kind of live in another dimension, but a lot of people are starting to see them. And they kind of live in mountain areas. They live up in Sedona in some of the high thunder mountains. When we had those big fires, I think it was 2013, 14, we felt the dragons move in and they bring their eggs, and their eggs are Akashic records. So they're wisdom keepers. That's why the ancient Egyptians had the god Sobek, because they saw that the crocodile and the reptilian energy, it always remembered. And then we've got our galactic dragons, which are our Draco brothers and sisters. And they were part of the races that first seeded this planet. So they worked with the Lumerians and Palladians to seed this planet in its first time. And that's my belief of, well, why we got dinosaurs. And we got dinosaurs that were both meat eating and the herbivores. And then it was a case of, okay, we're ready to evolve to a new consciousness. And then we started to seed with people after that. So there's 3 levels of dragons, but they're always very powerful and very interesting to work with. And I work with them in the different portals. There's a portal in Tibet, Shasta, Mount Fuji, Atlas Mountains, Glastonbury Atoll. So you kind of get sent to these various different areas, and they're often guardians and gatekeepers there. So I think it's becoming more comfortable for people to talk about it.
And then we're moving into the year of the dragon. I know the snake coming up. And is that an evolution? Where's that going?
So often when we're talking about the year of the snake, it's, the snake sheds its skin, the snake moves through things, it glides through things. And I think that this is the dragon where we kind of have to face our dragon energy. I'm 10 planets in fire, so that's where I kind of self-combust sometimes. Next year, it's about finding your rhythm, finding your flow. And so therefore, with a lot of the snake energy, it'll be interesting for me working through Asia because their cultures are very led by their beliefs. It's like those are their totem animals. So this is going to be interesting with them.
Great. Suzanne, any comments about anything?
Well, I was born in the year of the dragon, so and my sister is all about dragons. So I really relate to that dragon energy and the fire breathing and the purifying and the transmuting that the fire energy brings in. Also just being on fire, right? Like a lot of us are really lit up right now. Our souls are ignited and we're ready to, go out into the world and make a powerful difference. And yeah, so I look forward to seeing what the year of the snake has in store for us individually and collectively. I like the idea about shedding the skin, because I think we are in a rebirth, death and rebirth cycle, maybe every 7 years, where we're sort of like rebirthing ourselves into a new higher version of ourselves, right? But that does remind me of like shedding the skin and emerging, right, as a new higher version. And what does this have in store?
Mm. And the ancient Egyptians, if you look at many of their depictions, the cobra is often seen on the third eye. So this for me, I think you said before, Suzanne, it's like, stepping through the veil. This is almost like that third eye veil of people going, oh, I see it now. Oh, I see that. I feel that. I know that. Because so many people we meet are sentient. And if they're not in necessarily a safe place, they've closed that down because of the empath that they are. But now I'm feeling that maybe that snake's going to give us some vision to kind of spiral that through. So that may be my next course of study as well.
I like that, how in ancient times that serpent coming out the third eye indicated that pharaoh was enlightened,
Yes.
right? And then, of course, we can't think about the Kundalini energy arising,
Yes.
right?
Right. Not all the pharaohs had that, huh? That
Not all of them. Sometimes you would see them like with the Tutankhamun with the mask, so that they could see into the other dimensions, into the afterlife, because they didn't believe in the death. They believed, that they just went and they evolved into these other places.
there's so much you know about Egypt. You should just give a whole thing about that. The secret esoteric history.
I love it.
Maybe we should have a conversation, you and William Henry.
Yeah. She did do a presentation.
I will talk with anyone. Egypt is the easy one for me to kind of explain to people because they feel it, but they can see it. So it kind of does the job for me. And I'm really blessed that my agent and my guide is a phenomenal guide, and he works with a lot of the ministers and the ministry people. So he kind of has some special access, and I love when we can have the special access into places because the energy is so pristine.
Yes.
This year, we actually got onto the original Philae Island.
Oh, it's sunken. It's below the water, though.
Yeah, the water had gone down and it was at level, and literally we could step off the boat and we had a whole platform with the entire temple. Normally you can only see this much of the top of the temple. We had the
Yes.
whole temple.
But
So
I
we
thought
were,
the temple was moved to the other island.
but the original was still, some of it was left.
Oh, is
And
it
I put
different?
out,
Does it feel different on that island versus the island it was? It
yes,
does.
because we went the night before and we did the light show and nobody else was there, just me and my group of ladies. So we kind of went in and it's nighttime, it's pristine, you've got the voices. And I thought that was my highlight. And then the next afternoon we went back and I said, hey, what's it like on the other side? Can we go and view? We come around the corner and the water had dropped. It had dropped so much. And when you're stood, so I did all of the initiations there, and when you're stood, you can feel it. It's like static electricity in your hands.
Wow. Thank you
And
for sharing that.
that was
I-
incredible.
we went past it, but we didn't get out of the boat, and
Yeah. You can sometimes go past and it's kind of like this like little ledge. And
yeah,
often if you're taking photos there, you get orbs in your photos.
yeah.
But
Somebody brought back these crystals from there. These
Philae glass.
what do they call these types of man-made glass?
So people call it's actually silica from the aluminum mines around there.
Oh,
And there's something called Andara glass.
yes. These are not Andaras. This is from Egypt,
This
but
is
they
from
look like
Philae Island,
Andara crystals.
and they're just as powerful.
Wow.
So when you have these, basically an Andara glass, it's a glass silica which contains monoatomic gold and other substances. So literally it creates a cosmic connection. The Philae glass is from there, which picks up all of those energies and grids. And for me, Philae is like the number one, apart from the pyramids. And so that's why it'll resonate with you, because the ancient Egyptians, they knew how to work the cosmic.
Of
So,
course, they were connected. They knew they came from the stars.
yeah, yeah.
I could talk to you for hours,
Another
Amanda.
time.
But Suzanne, this has been so much fun again. Um,
It has
let's
been. And I
keep it
invite
going.
people to go to sci-spy.tv. It's now a free subscription, but Amanda Romania has an incredible show on sci-spy.tv called Cosmic Connections. And you can find that on the Beyond the Matrix channel. So it's just scispi.tv, and there tune into the Beyond the Matrix channel and her Cosmic Connections show. She has amazing episodes on there, everything from Egypt to star races to channeling to the Akashic records. You'll love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne, for another very informative, exciting preview to the Sedona Ascension Retreat that's coming up with these fantastic speakers. So much great knowledge. Seems like there it is. Seems like it's another level. We won't be swimming with dolphins in Sedona, though. But there you go.
Right? But these incredible luminaries that we have coming, Alan, and what a wonderful blend of the divine masculine and the divine feminine as well. We also have Native American performances. And speaking of performances, you recommended Kristen Hoffman, who has an
Yes.
incredible angelic singing voice, as well as playing different instruments. And we're bringing back the Native American family, the Sinquas, because I just love their performance last year. And then Stands with Bear, who's actually a local Sedonaite, is going to be playing the Native American flute. So I just wanted to mention some of the performances as well as the presentations and just this alchemical blend of magical luminaries, including yourself, Alan.
Thank you. It will be alchemical. I think, Amanda, you'll love Kristen Hoffman's singing. She is a singer-songwriter. Do you know her work?
I don't, but it just sounds
Oh, okay. And everyone else, Robert Edward Grant has a lot to say about Egypt. Of course, William Henry does. It's going to be, and of course, Sarah Brexman Cosme did a whole past life book collection on people's lives from Egypt. So there's going to be a lot of Egyptian stuff there and a lot of future timelines being formed or accessed there. So thank you. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And of course,
my
thank
honor,
you,
my
Suzanne.
pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll do it again. Thanks, Suzanne, for all your work. You and your little friend there by your side.
He always sneaks in at some point throughout.
And
Love you guys. Mwah.
thank
Welcome
you.
everybody to the Sedona Ascension Retreat. And I hope to see you in Sedona, March 14 through 16, 2025.
Yes.